I'd like to begin by sharing a story with you. While I was in boarding school at the Doon School, unless we busted bounds, we were only allowed to officially go into town twice a month. But I would often see a bunch of these guys walking right out of the main gate in the middle of the day with their heads held high and without a care in the world. One day I asked them, "Where do you go and how do you do it?" They replied, saying that they were from the editorial team of the Doon School Weekly and they were going out to visit the printer. I then decided to hatch my own plan to go to the printer so I could officially go into town whenever I wanted to. We convinced the headmaster that the school needed an art magazine, and I gathered a bunch of friends to join the editorial team, and we all started going to the printer 2 or 3 times a week. This went on for 7-8 months without even knowing where the printer was, for we would merely go to catch a movie or a meal with absolutely no interest or inclination towards the magazine. Until one day the headmaster called me and said Rajiv Gandhi, an ex-DOSCO, had just been appointed the Prime Minister of India. He would be attending our Golden Jubilee celebration that was to be later that year as our chief guest, and he would be launching the magazine. Now, this was the last thing I wanted to hear. And with only 5 or 6 weeks left for the launch, we had to get down to work. I then had this brainwave and decided that we should write to the 10 senior artists of the day and ask them to contribute an article or a painting or something for the magazine. As a few weeks passed, I only got one reply from those 10 letters that I wrote, and we had little time but to fill up the magazine with other stuff. It was only when one page was left that I got back 8 more replies. Some of the artists wrote an article, somebody sent a painting or a drawing, or even a previously written article that they said we could share. It was really in the holidays that followed that I went to visit each one of them for having taken me seriously and having responded to my request. It was this that really began my relationship with many of these artists as well as my collecting journey. Now, why did I share this story with you? To show you how such a small idea can go a long way and morph into something quite different. However, today I strongly believe in the capacity for art to change the way in which we view the world and the relevance of museums as being agents of positive change. Art stimulates curiosity, it broadens perspectives, and cultivates both critical and creative thinking skills. And arts education, which is almost negligent in our country today, needs to change. And given the way the world is hurtling towards adopting technology, many of our jobs which will be replaced with machines in the near future, it's really going to be imagination and creativity that separates man from machine. And there's nothing quite like art to fill that gap. I've had the good fortune and privilege of being associated with art from a very young age, but it was really my passion to learn more about it directly from the artists and creators that fueled my collecting journey. My collecting has largely been driven through my interactions with people that I've had the opportunity to meet, who have taught me new ways of looking at it and those that I had never considered until then. One of my most important mentors in this regard was the late artist Manjeet Bawa. It was he who taught me what to look for when reading an artwork. We had this amazing relationship. It was more like a mentor and a mentee, and at the same time it was like two friends being together. I had similar relationships and experiences with various other gurus. J. Swaminathan, who introduced me to folk and tribal art, Martan Singh, or Mapu as he was fondly called, showed me the magic of textiles, whereas Jyotindra Jain opened the world of popular culture. Professor B. N. Goswami took me back centuries into the worlds of miniature paintings, whereas both Dayanita Singh and Prabuddha Das Gupta showed me the great works done using a camera. It was these experiences, or rather these relationships really, that helped me channel and transition that passion and love for art into a cause for the larger good. I realized I wanted my collection to provide the very same opportunity of learning and hand-holding into the world of art and culture that I myself was fortunate to experience. And that is one of the primary reasons why I founded MAP, the Museum of Art and Photography. Around 15 years or so ago, I began being approached by museums in the West who wanted to borrow artworks for exhibitions that they were doing abroad. And while all this was very exciting for me, as it shows museums abroad were looking much more seriously at India, it also bothered me because there wasn't great quality in terms of museum exhibitions happening in our own country. I found myself looking forward to going to museum shows abroad, and especially those about Indian art. And it was then that I realized that I had in me a small opportunity to change the way things are done here. And it was also this thought that shaped the idea of forming a museum in India. We wanted to create a museum which would provide a space where people could engage with art in a new and interesting manner, where they could choose to spend an entire day with their families rather than the traditional one of going to the mall or the cinema. Here's why I believe an exposure to art and the existence of museums are a necessity much more than a luxury. Have a look.
In Tullunad, this breastplate transforms the wearer into a divine being, the goddess Bhagavati. Through him, we hear her voice from thousands of years ago until the very end of time, or so we believe. Science, technology, engineering, math. These pillars for children often have a missing ingredient, one that allows them to navigate creatively through any problem: art.
With MAP, my intention is not just to display a collection of artifacts, but to change the way art and museums are perceived in India. More importantly, the aim is to create a museum-going culture that encourages people to experience art and heritage in totally new ways. And even while many of us go and line up at museums abroad, we shy away from going to our museums in our own country. And sadly, many of the museums in India have either earned the reputation of being dull or boring when they are associated with history, and elitist or intimidating when they are associated with modern and contemporary art. Museums today cannot just be repositories of objects, but need to be a space for ideas and conversations. For MAP, the collection becomes the tool through which we hope to engage and connect with our audiences and the community in multiple ways. We want to bridge the gap between cultural institutions and the community. But like most journeys, ours too has not been one without challenges or obstacles. The first setback was when the PPP with the government for revamping the Venkatappa Art Gallery fell through because some artists were opposing it being given to us to run. That eventually turned out to be a blessing in disguise, as it paved the way for us to embark on this journey on our own in a far more ambitious way. Moreover, the scope and scale of the project increased manifold. The next challenge came when the pandemic hit us in 2020 and set the opening of the physical museum back by more than 2 years. In this too, there was a silver lining, and we saw this challenge as an opportunity to take the museum to the people in the comfort of their own homes. And so came about our pivot to the digital. Instead of waiting for a physical opening, we opened our doors digitally, setting up one of the first digital museums in December 2020 to open. What would otherwise have been a physical opening being witnessed by just 125 or 130 people was instead watched many thousand times from around the world. The pandemic may have changed things irrevocably in certain ways, but it has also been an incredible learning curve for us, and also facilitated new opportunities of engagement. We discovered how innovation and flexibility are invaluable to an organization if we are to stay relevant. For MAP to remain relevant in today's day and age, we had to rethink everything. Technology has played an integral role in shaping our institution, both in the digital as well as in the physical space, to make the museum more interesting for kids and young adults, and to demonstrate how art can be fun, hands-on, and for everyone to enjoy. With this journey that I've shared with you today, I wanted to showcase the transformative power of even the simplest of ideas, much like TED's own motto of ideas worth spreading. In my case, it was and continues to remain a very simple idea of how art can change the world, just the way it has changed me.